Hello there, Traveler. It's starting to get a little bit warmer as I'm on this path. The days are starting to get a little bit longer, especially after last time when we had that little jaunt in the night. Things do tend to get darkest right before it gets light, as they say, right? But that's not necessarily a bad thing. That's not necessarily a good thing. That's just a thing. It's the nature that we live in, right? We live in this world that is marked by these boundary cycles, right? We're in this constant state of change, just like the path in front of us, right? It's never in one place for long. It keeps moving forward. Even the path itself is moving along different tectonic plates or whatever different geological timescales that we might not understand. And one day, even beyond that, the Earth itself won't be here, and the path itself will be reconfigured into God knows what. Maybe a nebula? Maybe the void. I think taking a moment to actually acknowledge and accepting these transitions and this state of flux is how you get to consonance. By always accepting that everything is subject to this changing state of nature, you can actually, with relative certainty, take that next step forward. You can take it one step down at a time. As the days begin to get longer, it starts to get a little bit warmer. This time, when you make your way down to the ye olde inn, you don't hear the quiet stillness of the winter and the crunch of the frost around you. No. You hear the croaking of the frogs going.
That was great.
Thank you. You hear the chuckle of warmth and laughter marinating as you hear friends gossiping inside. You make your way in. You see a tapestry of warm faces surrounded by love and kindness, doing their best just to be present here in this moment, doing whatever that is, whether it's enjoying a nice bowl of ogre chili, taking a shooter of, I don't know, maybe they just like straight lemon juice because they're sociopaths and they had a weird bet with each other if they can take a shot of lemon juice.
That's a thing.
It is. I know it's, yeah, trust me, as a bartender, I've done dumber. But more than anything, you get to be an experience in this space, surrounded by love and just companionship, and people who want to be here, choose to be here. Make this temporary space, this ever-changing their space, their home for this time in this moment. And luckily enough, Traveler, that wonderful laugh and that wonderful chuckle is accompanied by such a beautiful and handsome face, such a kind and curious and genuinely resilient soul. Jared, my friend, my platonic lover, one of my best friends in the whole wide world.
Same.
How you doing today?
Not too bad. I really appreciate the warmth and coziness that the Tavern Post Inn has to offer. Nothing like a good old warm bowl of ogre chili, or again, a nice tall glass of Arnold Palmer to accompany a great time with a best friend and a beautiful soul. So I am always so blessed to be graced by your presence and get to just share this moment together and just kind of kick back, kick our feet up, just have a good time, share some laughs, and hear the frogs croaking outside, as you so eloquently put.
Taking the time to slow down and actually be present is hard when I want to do everything. But luckily, being able to be here with you and listen to the imaginary frogs and just be able to have a conversation with you takes a moment where it is a little bit easier to do that and to not necessarily run from the thoughts, but for a moment to escape their weights just by being present. That is a gift that wherever you're at, traveler. I hope you can find.
I hope so too.
We're going to go pretty hard today, Jared. We're going to go pretty hard into what we could metaphysically get into here, actually, with today's weekly meditation. So I think we're just going to go ahead and start it off with today's question of the week.
Wait, metaphysical meditation?
Metaphysical meditation.
That's meta.
Without going full new age Reiki on you, if you could have all the resources, all the time, and all the space available to build whatever you would like, a house, a park, a monument, what would you build? And in this place, I would like to add the added question to it. How would you guarantee people could actually slow down there and enjoy the moment?
That is such a tough one. That is really difficult. I feel like I'm actually going to need to think about this one, Tal.
I know that's kind of defeats the purpose, right, of having a question of the week that in theory we're supposed to meditation on, for a week, and we just kind of answer it spontaneously in the moment. So I know that this is kind of a flaw in the format itself. But I think that, I just knowing you, I think there's a few interesting ways I think you can take this, right? But I don't want to bias those answers, right? So I'm really interested in seeing where you are going to take it.
I do actually have an answer. And I'm actually going to draw inspiration from our past, and specifically a place that actually exists it was kind of theorized.
Okay. Yeah.
Arcosanti. So
what is Arcosanti?
So for those travelers listening, Arcosanti is basically, it was an area of land that was developed in kind of central Arizona, and it was designed by the architect Paolo Soleri. It was envisioned to be it was a brand new concept. It was going to be architecture meets ecology, and it was known as arcology, and it was supposed to essentially be just like a sustainable, self-functioning city and environment. It wasn't supposed to use any AC as we know it. It was supposed to use like natural cooling mechanisms. They were supposed to grow their own food. It was really planned to be immense in scale and have all those resources that they needed to create this self-sufficient society where you didn't have to leave. And it was obviously a very green idea for the time, because we're talking about back in the mid 20th century. I mean, this was like unheard of back then. I mean, that was like peak consumerism. Like boomers, Gen X, like in the middle of...
And the height of the utopia movement.
Yeah, and pretty much in the height of, like, go get your picket fence and house, the American dream. You can continue to expand, knock down existing things, drudge up new land for new properties. And this was an idea that was, like, unheard of. It was kind of mocked, and it was really mocked for a long time. But they started to actually at least build it and put forth the effort, but ultimately it fell well short of the planned expectations, mainly because the financial endeavor, unfortunately, Paolo never saw it through while he was still alive. But the idea still carries on and inspires people to this day. There are people who are residents of Arcosanti to this day that live there, they work there.
Make fantastic wind chimes.
They make fantastic wind chimes. And again, the wind chimes were actually made also by Paolo Soleri, and they've kept that tradition on.
No joke, they're cool.
Yeah, and the proceeds they get from the wind chimes go to fund Arcosanti, which is a really cool idea. They're still trying to build onto it to this day. You can stay there. It's not cheap, but you can stay there. And you can
Have you stayed there? You have, right?
No, I haven't actually. It's on my list of things to do, but obviously don't want to do it during the summer, because even in central Arizona, it's going to get up there in like the 90s, but we're talking like degrees Fahrenheit. But I would love to sometime. I mean, obviously it's not like, we're not talking like premier hotel prices, but you're not going to get like Motel 6 prices either. It's an investment, but it's supposed to be, because it's an investment in a community. Just like when you're buying these wind chimes, you're choosing to eat there, you go on a tour. all these things are investing in these people in this little community that they built, and they're trying to build upon it. And again, it's probably never going to be what it was envisioned to be, but does it really have to be? I mean, I know I just took a complete tangent on this idea, but that is essentially the inspiration I would draw upon for what I would build.
I think that not only is that a very expected answer, knowing who you are, I think that'd be so cool to be able to really honestly fulfill that vision and see if that utopia has actually any kind of a chance of success. I think is really cool. Now, Jared, obviously there was what was done in theory. What would be your spin on it? Now, would you still do it in the middle of central Arizona? Would you still do, how would you, what would you do different?
Yeah. Well, here's the thing.
Different technology.
Yeah, I was going to say there's been many advancements made in technology since Arco Santi was even theorized, since it was even like constructed initially. And there's actually a lot of, I guess, promising developments that are happening now, where I only say promising because these are ideas that are being built on the concepts of sustainability and kind of these self like functioning pockets of land, which is pretty awesome. I actually think there's one that's been theorized to actually happen in Arizona, out in the West Valley of the Phoenix metro area. Again, it's still completely an idea. Nothing has been finalized. I think there's also one in like the Middle East that they're thinking about building. So something about deserts. I don't know. Something about deserts that they want to build these self-functioning societies. But I mean, for me, I don't know. Like, I personally feel like, not to say the location doesn't matter, but I feel like a lot of places you could do something like this. The design changes, right? Like, if you're going to build this in like a Denver, Colorado type of area, like in the Rocky Mountains, you have to account for all the snow you're going to get. You have to keep things warm and insulated. You have to watch out for any like avalanches and things like that. In the desert, water runs scarce, so you need more efficient water recycling methods. You need better restrictions on that. You need ways to naturally cool the environment. And again, here's one thing I think I would upgrade from Arco Santi. I think that we could use modern day or like newer AC technology and things like that. We just need a way to, again, whether that's solar panels, geothermal, wind, whatever, like you name it, whatever the energy source is, heck, even nuclear. I think that there would have to be, like, for this to really work, you have to make as much energy as you need. So if you're able to do that and generate minimal to no waste, and even if the waste is recyclable in some way for other applications, then that's great. It's just consider your environment, understand those challenges, engineer to those challenges, and then you always want net zero. So that's net zero carbon, net zero waste, net zero energy. It needs to be scalable, which is a challenge, obviously. But if you're building it in such a way where, like, you're finely tuning every aspect of that society to minimize impact on the land and resources, then that's a beautiful thing. And one more dimension that you have to take into account with this idea, and I literally say dimension because calling back to our fifth dimension episode, we talked about in the three-dimensional space, you have length, width, and height. Well, the same principle applies to society. And in modern culture, especially here in America, we tend to build outwards. We don't build up. We build up in the middle city, and then we just kind of spread out, and it's this phenomenon known as urban sprawl. It just takes up way too much land. You have to drive like an hour to get across the city, right? You don't have to do that in this type of utopia, because essentially the goal would be to build vertically as much as possible. We're not talking like the Burj Khalifa or anything. But if you're able to build up as efficiently as you build out, then you're minimizing the footprint of the society, which is also a beautiful thing.
And down in the Arco Santi example.
Yes, because they literally built into the ground, exactly. I think ultimately the goal is to almost have like a symmetrical shape. So whether that's like a diamond, a sphere, a cube, whatever it is, like having almost a a shape where the middle point is the same distance to every side, because what that does is it allows you to provide equitable access to resources to your residents. Again, not everything's gonna be perfect, obviously. It's impossible to design a society where everyone's the same distance from the grocer, same distance from the doctor, the school, all that stuff. But if you look at all those resources and combine them, everybody should have fair and equitable access. So building in such a way allows you to do that. And then when you expand, you can take that into account as well. But I've always loved the idea. Again, maybe you can even do it in like pods, and each pod kind of has like its own dwelling units, and you kind of can build around almost like a cube or spherical like fashion, and then you just have your resources basically in bands throughout, so that way you have enough for everybody to access to. No one's too far away from anything. And again, if you build a society like this too, imagine going to see a friend or going to see a family member. Like, nobody's really that far away. You would never need a car. You could walk everywhere. It's super healthy for you. And then I think the last piece I'll mention is having some kind of outdoor presence as well. You don't want to be completely insulated. So whether this thing has a roof, you're able to go outside and you kind of have the surrounding areas. It's like an appreciation of nature, and also healthy resource extraction and not exploitation. Then that's really the ideal utopia, I believe.
Now, let me ask a scale size of it, right? Like,
Yeah.
how you said something really interesting to me there, that in theory, your friend, your family, all within walking distance, right?
Mhm.
So, like, what's talking about? You live in some place. You live in, I believe, the fifth biggest city in the U.S., right? You live in a mega city, essentially, right? You live
Yes.
in a place that has over 1 million people in it.
Mm-hmm.
That is truly one of the world's mega cities, right? In that context, right?
Yep.
Um, could it exist on that scale? How would you have someone, if you're where you live,
Yeah.
and then let's say I was living out, in Surprise, would it be able to exist on that scale, or how would we be able to get to each other,
Yeah.
or something like, or would it just not exist on
Yeah.
that scale? Would we not have 1 million people conglomerate in one spot like that?
No, I would argue it would work. And here's why. Because if you scale it down and you build in the fashion that I'm talking about, the population density is immense. I mean, have you ever heard of the Kowloon walled city? Have you heard of that example? It was
No, I don't believe I have.
let me look it up here, because I wanted to share this. This is a great example.
What is it? What is it again?
It's the Kowloon walled city. It's no
Kowloon World City.
No, walled city. Kowloon walled city. It no longer exists, but it used to be an ungoverned enclave of China with an extremely dense population. And it
Oh.
was basically like the most dense place on the planet. And I could not believe the fact that you had 300 buildings in total with over 33,000 people occupying a little more than 7 acres. And that, again, is incredible. And now, again, it's not necessarily a textbook example of this, because it wasn't obviously a finely engineered city or anything like that. It was not a great, it wasn't a great place to live. It was an impoverished region, if you will. So, but what I'm saying is that from a density standpoint, even if you are scaling it up to give people adequate living spaces and you have like these nice amenities, I mean, look at the population density of a place like Phoenix. It is extremely low because everyone is so spread out. You could have everyone packed in closer together, but still giving people their own space, and you can free up most of the empty space in the city that's created by roads, highways, all these means of separation building on top of one another. That definitely makes a big difference. And I also think that when the city does get big enough, again, either if it's like separate pods all joined together, or if it's like one massive pod with like bands of resources or something like that, different blocks, I think that's also when you have to consider some kind of high-speed rail transportation. I think would be great. Like you would at that point when you get to that scale, you would need some kind of really reliable, clean public transportation to get around rather than, of course, cars. So I think it's possible in
No
theory.
more automotive. So you're going to take away my car, is what you're saying?
I don't have to. Again, this is all just a hypothetical scenario. Like
So you tell me the globalists are coming for me is your fantasy. In your ideal situation. No, I'm just kidding. I'm having fun with it.
No, not necessarily. But I mean, hey, as long as they're electric and non-pollutant, then I think that there's an argument that could be made. It's just cars and roads take up a lot of space. That's the problem.
No, I have a legitimate one more boring scientific question about this ideal fantasy of yours.
Sure.
Now, if I wanted to get like a fresh dragon fruit, what's the realistic chances of me getting fresh produce that wouldn't be indigenous to my endemic regions? Like, how would you work through that?
Now, again, that could be, depending on where you're at, that could be a logistical challenge. Because if you're talking about...
If I'm living in, Arcosanti in central Arizona, and I want to, essentially a dragon fruit from, Indonesia, right? Or the Southeast Asian region, right? How is 1 + 1 = 2 here?
Yeah.
I understand we have the technology to have these different things, but we're talking about a completely different, agricultural system where you were talking about, them being, essentially rings kind of around, the city proper. So a lot of the produce that would you just be producing kind of a little bit of everything and just kind of mixing and matching, or would it be like a command economy kind of style thing where you're like, we produce this, or is it actually endemic to the regions and there has to be some kind of local, exchange or globalized still exchange with it?
I think you'd still have to rely on exchange because I think the scale that you'd have to operate at to still be able to grow everything on your own and be completely isolated. I also want to clarify that's not what I'd want to go for here at all. I think, there's still an application for like long distance trains, cars, and things like that outside the city to get from one point to another.
I'm not saying you couldn't get to the dragon fruit. I'm saying, just on like a random Tuesday, if I was just walking to the because that is, say what you want to will about global capitalism.
Yeah.
I can go any day I want to the superstar market right now and get a fucking dragon fruit, right? Like that's just the thing I can do, pretty much. And in a lot of places in the world, that So I just was interested in that dichotomy.
No, it almost be like you'd almost have to maintain the same system we have in terms of globalist exchange, or if, again, there's like domestic producers of these different goods and you kind of trade and stuff like that. But I wouldn't envision a scenario where you're making all that stuff on your own soil. I think that'd be a little too much. I think that globalism actually is a good thing because if we look at it even on a domestic level, different regions specializing in different crops or produce, things like that, it's actually a really good thing because it inherently provides trade opportunities. So, like, I make apples, you make milk, we trade, right? And then it works itself out.
No, and I think that ultimately that's probably you to kind of get out the answer, right? That there's still room for a global market without capitalism, right? You can still have someone who grows in indigenous whatever to their local region, actually the fauna that's supposed to be there, right? And actually still have a global network of trade that isn't substantiated around just fiat currency, right? So I really do think that it's really an interesting idea to be able to explore, like, how do you get dragon fruit in utopia,
Yeah, you would really have to lean, if we're going back to resource-based economy, you'd have to really lean on the goods themselves. So, yeah.
Just imagine how many dragon fruits we could produce, though, Jared, at Arcosanti. At least 3.
At least 3. I would set the over-under at 3.5. I think so.
3.5.
Yeah.
Okay, I like that idea.
Yeah. I'm going to take the over on it. I'm going to be a little ambitious here.
A little ambitious, okay. I always like it when you're ambitious.
Thank you.
I think you wear it well.
Thanks. I think you do too, honestly.
Thank you.
You were a person of immense ambition, and I have always lauded just your efforts that you go about in your own day-to-day life and your creative passions and everything. That's like things that you're passionate about, you're really ambitious with. So
It's all just imposter syndrome based narcissism, so it's all good, dog.
I love the disguises. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh no, do everything I can to be authentic, right? I think sometimes that's the challenge in it.
True, true.
I think I really struggle with this question, right? I think of if I could do anything, if I could make anything with any resource, and what would I do to make it meaningful? I think my ultimate creation or answer to with what to create is hard without going into some like Minecraft God mode of like, let me create the world, like, right, and like try to like figure out how to like balance that, right?
Yeah.
I think realistically, man, I think my answer is a fucking turtle. Um, and I mean it in the quite literally, like, it's the turtles all the way down sense, right? If I could have an infinite resources and infinite whatever, right, I would like essentially, I don't know, like an island or some kind of space where I could have a place to truly dedicate to rewilding, first and foremost, right? One that's ideally free of any kind of indigenous land issues, so I'm not taking any kind of stolen land, and or any kind of blood history associated with it, right?
Yeah.
So that's why ideally I would just like my lion turtle in the middle of the ocean where I could just do this and that's all hunky dory. But like, so in my ideal situation, it's on a mythological creature, but in a realistic situation, probably like some kind of, maybe like I really like some of the like the honestly like where Olympic National Forest is, something like that, right? Something where it's this like kind of rainforest, but like temperate rainforest kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
And
beautiful.
Dedicated to not only just like intense rewilding and conservation efforts, to letting it just be in that natural cycle, but intentional, likely also having space in there for rehabilitation and restoration, but then at the same time, like taking it into like an active hand in it, like not taking it in just like that humans need to be removed from it, but like this very intensive concepts that come through rewilding, right? Of like, no, humans are a part of this anthropological part. Like we have forever changed these things as is through microplastics, all these different things through whatever, and I want to use that space to be a true space of to experiment, to heal. Like, what does it mean to like for the world itself to deal with net microplastics and microbial networks, right? I want to understand that, right? And like all those fun little exploits and exactly, right? I want to understand what does it mean to go through that, right? And in the same time, right, have it be, in my ideal space, there would be a grotto where I could do my daily saunas. I like my steams. I like my hot baths. It would be there would still also be a space where where people can have this exchange in the communal space with nature too, right? There would be a place for humans in this as responsible walkers of the garden, not as clear cutters, not as destroyers, not as masters of diminutive, but as an active caretaker in it, right? And I think a big part of it would be understanding, and honestly, my fear of getting over both apex predators and micro predators such as worms and nematodes and stuff like that. And I think addressing those things, like seriously, right? And like actually understanding like what it meant to like deal with those things and why they're parts of these systems, right? Because in my perspective, they're just these things and these negative organisms at times, but like they're, it's a lot easier for me to, I guess, empathize with an apex predator than it is a predatory worm. But at the same time, they both fill ecological niches that I don't understand all the way through. And I think getting to be able to understand these complex relationships and to nurture it, right? I think that would be my dream situation. I think, again, selfishly, there would be some way in there too as well to dedicate for my creative endeavors. I'd love to have some kind of natural recording studio in there for you, buddy. I love a place that I could set up a music stand and practice the banjo, right? I love a place in there where I can truly dedicate to all my, because like I would like to think of that space as essentially my living terrarium, right? And I'm trying to understand and trying to manage that ecosystem cool. and heal it and let it go through its evolutions. But then I would like to, at the same time, be able to have a space in there where, like, there can be that order and stillness, right? Where I can have that intentional quiet, in that place of creativity, potential, and respite, um, and I think that ultimately, that's why I watch like that, that one YouTube channel I showed you and everything like that, right? And being able to, that stuff fascinates me, and like, 'cause it's all the system, it's all connected, and I just want to, if I could have my ideal situation, and if I could just do anything, it would be to like figure out what that is. As much as I like to play human, I'm still a part of that cycle. And I just want to understand that cycle and that relationship as best as I can while I have the opportunity to be here. And if I had the infinite ability to do that, man, I'd just be a dirty little, I'd be like, like I was a kid just playing in the mud.
Yeah. Beautifully said, Tal. Beautifully said. And it sounds like a really warm and relaxing place to be. Just like one with nature, getting to like feel nature from like the tips of your toes all the way to like the top of your head, basically. It's just such a cool feeling.
With bougie accommodations, again, it's the thing. I still have the pinkies up approach to it, but that's another conversation, and that's for the private quarters, but that's for anyone who comes in.
Are you having tea by any chance?
Of course. Of course we're having tea.
I would hope so.
And of course, I would love to live in a place that like a tea tree actually grows, you know what I mean? And like we would like forage for like tea. Like that would be like the ideal situation where like we go to the tea grove, like quite literally, right?
And that's a cool idea too, like having routines that are created by this natural habitat.
That would be exactly it, right? It'd be that is the unspoken part of it for me, and my cycle of it, right? Would be to literally like, how do I get into this routine of like, it would be my existence, right? It would be like that. I think ultimately that is what my slow down fantasy is, right?
One with the earth.
But just to live like fucking Radagast the Brown, dude, and just fuck off and like just get all the earth honeys and like fuck with the animals and like just go on mushroom trips and like just vibe out, dude.
Sounds like you're getting biological.
I love to have the rabbits just like hither at my command.
That's awesome. You're getting biological.
And it's not even to have the rabbits hither at my command. It's because they trust me and they know we have a working relationship.
Mm-hmm. Getting biological.
That's again for the private quarters with other humanoid whatevers.
Oh boy, yeah.
We're not going too far into that hentai.
Oh no. Yeah. No, that's not rated for this podcast.
This podcast doesn't have a rating. Anytime I do any of the adult stuff or anything like that, is this made for kids? I'm like, no, it's not. It's clearly not made for kids. And I'm not going to pretend like it, I'm not going to try and monetize this shit. I'm going to cuss and I'm going to talk about weird hentai shit on it. That is exactly what this place is for, Jared.
Yeah, I understand. It's authentically you. And I love that.
Yeah, true to yourself. That's why, again, I don't know who you are 5 people are that like the analytics say routinely listen to this, but like again, I appreciate you. I know, Jared, you routinely listen to these episodes, so there's one. Mm-hmm. I don't listen to my own episodes. I don't ever listen fucking back to this shit. I can't stand it. That's not how my creative process works with my OCD. True. So I don't know who these other people are, but I appreciate you.
That's awesome.
That's it. That's all I got. Yeah, that's it. Peace out, Traveler.
Beautiful ramble, as always.
Well, Jared, as we're getting dragged up here, is there anything you'd like to close out at the Tavern Post in tonight? Is there anything you'd like to say goodbye to the Traveler? Anything you'd like to meditate on yourself?
Embrace the growth, embrace the change, and always push yourself to be a better version of yourself.
Whether we like it or not, things keep on changing, don't they?
They always do. Again, change is inevitable. Whether we ourselves adapt, that's one thing, but dealing with that change it's always going to happen.
Well, Jared, I am fortunate that not only does the Traveler get to experience that change with you, but I get to lean on you for not only strength, but for help too as well. Traveler, wherever you might be at in your journey, wherever that path is changing and manifesting into, it doesn't take away from the fact that whether you are a conscious being or not, you don't deserve to suffer. You deserve happiness. You deserve compassion. and you deserve to be aware of whatever your conscious experience is. You are loved, and god damn it, you are so fucking enough.
Namaste. I did. Thanks for the shout out.
Once more, but innumerable times.